But what McKinsey did was then McKinsey looked at this and said, okay, if we had to choose these technologies, what do we do first? So what is deployable at scale first? And this is based on technology readily available now, not leaps of faith technologies necessarily. And the interesting thing is that energy efficiency is feasible now, and it's actually economical now. You could actually get on energy efficiency about a quarter to a third of all the reductions. So of those 7 gigatons that would have to come out year in and year out by just doing energy efficiency. And the average energy efficiency, this was called a cost curve because it tried to reflect the actual cost of implementation with the savings or cost, if it was on the other side of the line here, of actually implementing this. So you can see all the orange and yellow here is actually energy efficiency, and it's all could be done at scale, cost effectively. And what's actually very interesting, and I remember talking with the mayor of Chicago on this when in my prior job, was that he says these are the jobs that can't be outsourced. These are the jobs that you need somebody to install windows and install insulation, et cetera, to put a green roof on a building, et cetera. So there are actually quite a number of opportunities, very interesting opportunities on there. And I will talk a little bit about the energy efficiency side in a few minutes. But what you don't do first is biofuels, ethanol, which, if you remember the boom of about 3 or 4 years ago, everyone was trying to build ethanol plants. They were taking over old breweries upstate New York. Why? Because it's extremely cost ineffective. You would need a price of carbon of about $60 a ton to get there. And if anyone's been following the legislation in Washington, there's probably very little appetite above about $15 a ton to do anything. They're talking about things called safety valves, that if ever hits about $15 a ton, you get extra allowances to pollute more, so to speak. So the political climate will not allow that. So it makes sense to actually do the energy efficiency first and then gradually move into the others. But also just on some optimistic note, is to show clean energy spend, in spite of the recession last year, was still quite high. It was about $10 billion less than the year before. But the growth patterns were huge, 70%, 50%, 52%, and then over the last 2 years, 5%, and then the -6%. But that's the recession years. And I don't think there's any reason to think that we won't see a real boom in spend on clean energy over the next few years, particularly if policy comes in place, but as well as the needs, replacement needs of the coal plants in the U.S. are quite old and need to be replaced. There's the smart grid initiatives in the U.S., which is to upgrade the grid. There's numbers being floated to there, about $20 billion to do that. So there's huge potential incentives, and so that you're going to see the spend, I think, go up dramatically.